What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're doing another ranking video, only this time it'll be done a little bit differently. We're talking about the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is split into 23 films, 3 phases, and 9 different franchises. So far, it's growing all the time, and today we're going to find out definitively what the best MCU film is, or at least to me, and we're doing so much more than that too, because first, I'm going to do what I normally do and just rank all the movies from worst to best with a little bit of commentary to try to explain my mad conclusions. Then I'm going to rank each phase of the MCU from worst to best, and then I'm going to rank each independent franchise in this massive universe from worst to best. Basically, this is going to be a long video. If you don't finish it, I understand, but I will try to be quick. Let's get started. In 18th place, otherwise known as last place with a score of 72%, is Ant-Man. Let me state this right off right now. I don't consider any MCU film to be bad. On the contrary, I think they're all pretty dang good, but where it fits in the universe is important. And Ant-Man was a film that, for whatever reason, felt weird to me. Tonally, the film constantly felt like a weird late 90s, early 2000s comedy. During this time in film history, comedies were a little bit corny. One film came to mind when I was watching this one, based off of the corny plot, the overacting bad guy, the cheesy comedy, and that was Jackie Chan's The Tuxedo. Maybe I'm the only one. In 17th place at 75% is Captain Marvel. I think my main thing against Captain Marvel all had to do with the narrative when I put together the narrative analysis. There's a narrative theory out there called Dramatica. If you aren't familiar with it, check it out. There's a lot of fascinating reading material on it. Basically, the idea of Dramatica is to simply say if a film or a book has enough literary elements to it to have a complete narrative story. And Captain Marvel didn't, because it had a bit of a false narrative. It prepares the audience for one thing, and it does something else entirely. Fun movie, but not everything it could have been. 16th place at 78% is Thor: The Dark World. Now this is probably on par with a lot of people's lists. People just don't like this film. Trust me, my list won't often be on par with yours, so you better take it when it can be. When this came out to theaters, I actually liked it quite a bit better than the first Thor. What's changed? I think it really comes down to storytelling and being a little bit all over the place. In 15th place at 79%, which is the first Thor. Like I said, the original Thor is better than The Dark World, but only by 1%. The balance of the film is all it really takes to make a difference. While I was never really a huge fan of this movie, I can at least see where it is a better film from a narrative position. At 14th place and at 80% is Iron Man 2. Here's another movie that basically everyone complains about, and I get it, but 80% still signifies that it's a good movie. I mean, from this point forward, you're taking letter grades from B up. That's how good this entire universe is to me. Even when we're this low on the list, it's still a B-. It only gets better from here. Also, Whiplash is awesome, and so is the Suitcase Suit. Landing at 13th place with a score of 85% is Captain America: The First Avenger. This is a movie that I know is made well, hence the score, but one of my least favorite films in the universe. I've never liked a lot of war films or even some films set in that era. Heck, Captain America was never really my favorite type of hero. There was a lot riding on this film for me not to like it, but I can say that it was made very well and I respect it for that. Next, in 12th place at 87% is Spider-Man: Homecoming. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and this was a good addition to the history of Spider-Man films. There were things that I loved in this movie and things that didn't always work for me, but one thing that's hard to argue is that no other Spider-Man film has ever felt like this before, and that originality is hard to beat. In 11th place at 88% is Avengers: Age of Ultron. This Avengers movie sometimes annoys me because it's simply not up to par with the others. I like certain things in the movie, and you can't skip it because it's relatively important to the universe, but yeah, it feels almost like a cheap film in comparison to the other Avengers movies. Heck, Civil War isn't even an actual Avengers film, and it's still a better Avengers film. Take that as you will. Top 10 time. In 10th place at 89%, we have our first tie between Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Man, when I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, I bust out laughing. I think it works as a whole so much better than the first. It feels a little bit more original, everyone feels more comfortable working together, it just works. And Guardians of the Galaxy 2 may not be as solid as the first, but it's still a lot of fun. In 9th place at 90% is Black Panther. A lot of people consider this to be the best MCU film when it first came out, and I'm not entirely sure why. Don't get me wrong, it's a pretty great movie. I was really enthralled watching this one, and I can't wait for the sequel, but best MCU? Maybe not. In 8th place at 91% is Thor Ragnarok. Boy, this was a surprise hit, wasn't it? Up to this point watching Thor, including his appearances in Avengers, I've never really loved his character, but this was the film that changed my mind. His entire personality shifted in this and he became hilarious, and then they went and changed his look entirely, and something about it is definitely up there as one of my favorite MCU films of all time. In 7th place at 92% is The Incredible Hulk. Don't kill me, but yes, I do consider this film to be an A- type of film. When it first came out, it blew my freaking mind, and it still does whenever I watch it. That musical score is incredible. Those graphics are still to this day mind-boggling. Just watching the contortion of his body as it is forced to go through this transformation of human to Hulk is still miles better than anything they've done since. His transformation in the Avengers, for instance, is basically just a morph with clothes ripping. If this film fit a little bit better with the MCU's current vision, this rating would be a lot higher. In 6th place at 93% is our second tie between Spider-Man Far From Home and Iron Man 3. This is another film that's going to have a lot of people scratching their heads, particularly with Iron Man 3. Look, I believe in the vision behind Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is a beautiful film. The art direction specifically is one of my favorite in the entire universe, and Far From Home really impressed me. Once again, it did things no other Spider-Man film had even attempted to do before, plus it had Mysterio, which I'd been wanting to see in a Spider-Man film since the time of Tobey Maguire. Top 5 time. In 5th place at 94% is the original Iron Man. Before the universe was much of a universe, we had Iron Man. I went into the theater not knowing what to expect and came out blown away. Every time I watch it, I'm reminded of that. I'm also consistently impressed at the quality of that first film. It's still incredibly good, especially for a Phase 1 film. In 4th place at 95% is Avengers: Infinity War. Awesome film, especially given the change in narrative functions. Thanos is the protagonist, the Avengers are the antagonists, but one thing that kept the score from being even higher was the fact that this was an Avengers film where all the Avengers didn't occupy the same space together. They were always spread thin, which made it feel slightly convoluted to me. In 3rd place, at 96%, is the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. Just like the first Iron Man, I went in not knowing what to expect and came out blown away. The way that they introduced an entire galaxy of characters and worlds was phenomenal, and it took me back into the days of Star Wars, because Star Wars was always good at the same exact thing. In 2nd place at 97% is both Captain America sequels, The Winter Soldier and Civil War, as well as Avengers Endgame. While most people would agree The Winter Soldier is a great movie, I'd argue that so is Civil War. Both movies blew me away, and if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably pick Civil War. That one is still one of MCU's most watched films for me, personally. Plus, I won a bunch of stuff when Vudu did their viewing party thing on Civil War. As for Endgame, I mean, come on, nearly perfect in every way. A very satisfying film that probably should have been the end of the Infinity Saga, but hey. Here we go. In 1st place, the best movie of the MCU, in my opinion, is a tie. The score is 98%, and the movies are Doctor Strange and the original Avengers film. Now look, not everybody loves Doctor Strange, I get it, but I am always cast in this transient spell or something when I see it. It's an incredible, beautiful film, and that's only increased if you see it in 3D, which is insane. And I'm not a huge fan of 3D films all the time. I don't often think it makes the movie better, but it does for Doctor Strange. Yet the 2D version is still solid, and the concept is really bold and creative. I love everything about it. As for the Avengers, how did that beat out Endgame? I think it honestly had to do more with simplicity and the fact that nobody had ever done anything like it before. Crossover events weren't really a thing then, and the fact that this happened was insanity. Plus, the writing style of Joss Whedon is something I've always loved. The fact that it didn't have a million other Avengers helped it feel grounded. I can't not praise that first Avengers movie. Now that we got that over, which phase is the best? In 3rd place with an average score of 87% is Phase 2. Phase 2 is weird, right? Because it has movies that I don't exactly love, like Ant-Man, Thor 2, and Avengers Age of Ultron. All movies that are, once again, fine, but not what you think of when you're thinking of the MCU, at least not me. But the other movies in the phase are all in the 90th percentile, which kept the score high as an overall idea. From worst to best, the movies in this phase are Ant-Man, Thor 2, Avengers 2, Iron Man 3, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Captain America the Winter Soldier. In second place with an average score of 88% is Phase 1. A lot of that first phase was introductory films that were decent in general, but again, when I saw it for the first time, I didn't really care that much about Thor or Captain America. Also, Iron Man 2 still being in the first phase was weird to me. It is what it is, I guess. Thankfully, that first Avengers film is phenomenal. The movies in Phase 1 from worst to best are Thor, Iron Man 2, Captain America the First Avenger, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, and The Avengers. The best phase in the MCU thus far is Phase 3 with an average score of 90%. This probably has more to do with the fact that this phase has the most movies included versus any of the other phases. I mean, it's nearly Phase 1 and 2 combined based on how movies there are in it. That allows for more room to be better, but I guess it also gives it more opportunities to be bad at the same time. I don't know. The movies from worst to best in this phase are Captain Marvel, Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man 2, Black Panther, Thor 3, Spider-Man Far From Home, Avengers Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Endgame, and Doctor Strange. Now that we got that out of the way, it's now time to figure out which independent franchise is the best in this universe, starting with 8th place with an average score of 80%. It's Ant-Man. Like I said, I was never a fan of the first Ant-Man, so that dragged the score down for me. However, I do love that second one, so that evened out the score to a B-, which isn't bad at all. In 7th place with an average score of 82% is Thor. I was never a huge fan of Thor 1 or 2, as I've mentioned in my main list, but that third film is so good. One of the best movies in the entire MCU, which is what brought this score up a little bit. But yeah, from worst to best, if you don't remember, it's Thor 2, Thor 1, then Thor 3. In 6th place with an average score of 89% is Iron Man. Now, I love the Iron Man trilogy. I really do. There isn't really a movie in there that I hate. Iron Man 2 is the worst simply because it didn't have enough in there for the audience to love, other than maybe Whiplash, War Machine, Black Widow, and the Suitcase Suit. There's a lot in there that doesn't feel super important though. Iron Man 3 would be next, but I truly do love that film, and Iron Man is a classic at this point. In 5th place, with an average score of 90%, is Spider-Man. I love what they're doing with the Spider-Man series in this universe, and even if they are always playing a tug-of-war with him over at the Sony and versus Disney argument table, I don't know. I can't wait to see where they take him, though. In 4th place, with an average score of 91%, is Hulk. I know Hulk isn't actually a real franchise, but to me it kind of is because Thor Ragnarok was every bit a Hulk movie as it was a Thor movie. So I include this and The Incredible Hulk as a franchise, even though I probably shouldn't. That being said, they are both really great for me for two very different reasons. In 3rd place, with an average score of 92%, is Guardians of the Galaxy. This is such a weird yet epic franchise that I can't get enough of. The colorful characters, the music, the comedy, the talent, the creativity. It's so different, yet so unique, and it's always a blast to watch. In 2nd place, with an average score of 93%, is Captain America. Man, I started out not loving that first Captain America movie, but those last two films are hard to ignore. They are put together so elegantly and so epically that I can't not talk about them. They are legendary and some of the best cinematically edited together films in the entire MCU. In 1st place, obviously, with an average score of 94%, is The Avengers. Those 4 movies, boy, is it a great time to be alive. I don't care what you say, Scorsese, this is cinema. They put so much work into these 4 movies and the whole universe as a whole that you just can't say it's not cinema. So many people are moved by what these films have to offer, by who these characters are and what they represent. Anyways, the Age of Ultron is good, but the other ones are phenomenal. Anyways, that's it. Sorry for being such a long ranking, but there are so many things in this entire universe to talk about. And that's all I got, guys. Tell me what your ranking of the MCU is in the comments down below. And as for YouTube, you make sure to subscribe to this video if you like this ranking and would like to see some more like it. Hit the thumbs up button, as that always helps out my channel. And don't forget about the little bell icon, which helps notify you when I come out with my next review or ranking video. And until then, peace out!